Hey there, everybody. This is a Solid Signal podcast for the week of March 10th, 2014. It's a nice sunny day in the Solid Signal podcast studios, and let me tell you, it really feels like spring is starting to come. I can't get that happy song from Despicable Me out of my head, and that's a problem in and of itself, but we'll move on from there. Last week I spent a lot of time ranting about the Oscars and about baseball season, and I've gotten a lot of positive feedback about that. It seems like that's the kind of thing that y'all really enjoy listening to, and I get that, but I also kind of need to pay the bills now and again with tutorial articles, and that also tends to make people believe actually that I know what I'm talking about when I do a podcast about stuff that people really do need to know about as opposed to just spouting off, which is entertaining, but come on. So, this week's podcast is about oxidation and corrosion, which are really part of the same thing. But oxidation is little something to worry about, and corrosion is something pretty serious. Really, it's just a matter of degree. Let's dive in. First thing you need to know is that oxygen isn't such a great thing. Oh, sure, humans need it to breathe, all animals do. But plants were here first, and for them, oxygen was the thing you got rid of. Why? Because it's corrosive. In other words, it'll eat away stuff. And that has to do with some serious chemistry things that I'm not sure we really want to get into here on the Solid Signal podcast, but, I'm going to kind of gloss over it. The point is that oxygen, as an element, it wants to combine with other things. It wants to combine with other elements. It's, kind of like the Leisure Suit Larry character, if it will. It wants to go out and combine with anything it finds. So, when oxygen finds a bare metal like aluminum or copper or iron, it wants to combine with that bare metal and make a new thing called an oxide. That's why they call it oxidation. And you know about iron oxide, that's rust. Aluminum oxide is that black stuff you find on antennas, and maybe you thought that was just soot from the chimney. Copper oxide is the green stuff you find on pennies if you've washed them a couple of times by mistake. All oxidation is essentially the same, but some oxidation is a little bit more worrisome than others. First of all, you really don't need to worry about aluminum oxide. Aluminum will start to oxidize pretty much as soon as it hits the open air. But aluminum oxide doesn't stop your antenna from working any better. It has to do with the chemical properties of it. So you can have as much aluminum oxide on the outside of your antennas you want, and in fact, a layer of oxide on the outside of the antenna is going to stop further oxidation on the inside of the antenna. That's a good thing. Iron oxide is rust, of course, and you've seen this before. If it's just a thin layer of it, it'll come off with steel wool and you'll be all set. Certain kinds of iron, like stainless steel, are very resistant to oxidation. And then we come to copper oxide. Copper oxide is not that bad on pennies and certainly not a problem on the Statue of Liberty, but if you ever see copper oxide on the connectors on your satellite dish or even on the wires themselves, this is a problem. Copper oxide does not transmit electricity very well, and if you see oxidation on anything made of copper, you should replace it. So oxidation is the chemical process. We also refer to oxidation as that thin layer that you can get off that really doesn't damage the thing that you're working on, unless, of course, it's copper. And like I said, if you see oxidation on copper, change that out immediately. If oxidation goes unchecked, especially in iron, it turns into corrosion. Corrosion is where oxidation takes over and starts really just eating through the thing that you've got. A corroded pole will be a lot less strong than a non-corroded pole, and it's more likely to fail. If you see anything in your antenna or satellite setup that looks corroded, in other words, it's starting to look kind of lumpy, there's flakes on it, stuff like that, that should always be replaced. Oxidation may not be a problem because you can just kind of scrub that off, but corrosion always is a problem. See the difference? Oxidation, not so bad. Corrosion, always bad. Here's another bit from the old science teacher textbook. Different metals will oxidize at different rates, and different metals will be more or less likely to oxidize than other metals. As I said, aluminum starts to oxidize right away, but the good thing is that that's not a problem. On the other hand, something like gold hardly ever oxidizes. Yes, it is possible to have gold oxide, but it's very, very rare. So you might be asking, well, why is he talking about oxidation and corrosion at this point in time? Well, something that you also know if you think about it is that oxidation is much more likely to happen when things are wet. Water just acts as what we call a catalyst, allowing that oxidation to form. So, after all the snow we've had and after all the rains we're about to have, oxidation is a real potential possibility. Right now, if it's not snowing and if it's not raining, now is the time to get up on that roof, take a look at those poles, take a look at those wires. If you're seeing oxidation on the dish, replace that dish. If you're seeing any green oxidation on those wires, replace those wires. Don't worry about the antenna. That aluminum oxide isn't going to hurt you. But on the other hand, iron oxide on the pole, if you start to see the mast beginning to get corroded, you got problems, my friend, real problems, and you should take care of them before they take care of you. Here's the part where I pay the bills. Solid Signal has all the things you'll need to replace any oxidized components or cables that you may find once the winter is over and before the spring rains begin. This is the perfect time to be looking at solidsignal.com to try to find a replacement satellite dish, cables, masts, mounts, anything that you need to make sure that all of your outdoor equipment is just running perfectly. Do it now. And in the meantime, I'll say goodbye for today. I hope I hear from you again next week. Leave a comment if you'd like. And until then, have a nice sunny one and stay happy.